Thank you so much for your patience. We are going to now move on to, after our illustrious talk, we're going to now move on to welcoming two key players to talk to us about the long-term health innovation, long-term investment, in the healthcare space. It is a great pleasure to welcome the President of the French Insurance Fédération, Florence Lutsman, and also the Member of Parliament for Val-de-Marne, the General Rapporteur for the Budget, Laurent Saint-Martin. Lovely. So thank you very much indeed for playing the game and being patient for us to move on to this 25 minutes, just under 25 minutes discussion together. I'll start, first of all, Florence, with you. We have microphones. Yes, can we have some microphones, please? Thank you very much. And could we have Solène, one more for Laurent Saint-Martin? Thank you very much. Sorry. Multi-apologies. So, yes, Florence, over to you. Could you start off by telling us about the role of the FAA here and the actions that you conduct?
Yes, just maybe I would like to start by reminding that insurance, by its very essence, is a long-term business. Mm-hmm. It's a long-term business because we manage the risks of our customers over time. Mm-hmm. So first they pay a premium, and then years and sometimes decades later, we will give the money back for life insurance, for example. So we need, in between, we need to invest policyholders' money in safe and profitable investments. And all the more in the environment, the current economic environment with negative or next to zero interest rates, it is quite obvious that insurers do invest in the real economy. In fact, we have 60% of our investment, which amount to 2,700 billion euros, so 60% of that is directly invested in companies. And only 30% in sovereigns, in government bonds. So we fund SMEs, we fund biotechs, we fund infrastructures, and of course we have a special tendency to invest into the healthcare system. And why that? Just because we are also, with our other hat, we are health insurers. Mm-hmm. And the health insurance market is very competitive in our country. 96% of the French people have a private health insurance. Mm-hmm. And since there is a lot of competition, then we are all looking for innovation. And so that's the reason why we pay a lot of attention to this market. We are keen on any development regarding prevention or regarding care or cure. And when we have detected one, then we incorporate it in our contracts. And this is a competitive advantage compared to the other insurance contracts. So with both hats, on the one hand as investors and on the other hand as health insurers, we are really committed towards the healthcare system.
So you could describe yourselves as a facilitator to access to innovation?
Yeah,
That'd
definitely.
Be fair? Yeah, that would be fair. And Laurent Saint-Martin, thank you for being here this evening. Could you tell us a little bit about how, can you address the subject of how we can strengthen support in the field of health innovation?
Good morning, everyone. As this panel is called long-term investment, I think exactly as Minister Pannier-Runacher just said before, the role of a public institution is at the same time to invest massively, directly, for innovation, for future, and namely for health tech innovation, but also to create and enable a better fiscal and regulation environment, making private investment more important in our country and in Europe. So the public institution and what we vote at the National Assembly is important with these two means, two ways. So I don't want to repeat what the minister said very perfectly, but just to make sure that everyone has in mind that since 2017, and not only since the end of the COVID crisis, since 2017, we have started investing in health tech innovation, first thanks to a budget for a Ministry of Research, Innovation and Higher Education, 25 billion per year, which is in France the fourth minister in terms of budget after education, defense and environment. And we also invest directly thanks to programs which are called PIA4 for the one who know about that. Also, of course, thanks to the recovery plan, 100 billion, and also thanks to a specific investment plan in health innovation, which President Macron presented last July, which mobilizes more than 7 billion euro. I'm not telling about figures just to impress and say in France we have a lot of money to invest, just to really explain that there are different ways to invest. We have the Ministry of Research, because we have skills, we have researchers of good quality, and the health care and the health tech companies know it, but we also have programs to invest directly. And this won't be enough if we do not create this enabling environment in terms of taxes, fiscality. And that is why we have decided in 2017 to reform what we used to call the ISF, the wealth tax, also the flat tax for capital taxation, and a lot of different laws making France more attractive to invest. And it works, because for the second years consecutively, France is the first European country in terms of foreign direct investment. And of course, it has impacts also in health tech innovation company. So if you have a country that invests directly and above all, just after a huge crisis as the COVID crisis, and at the same time, you have a state that is capable to create a friendly fiscal environment for once in France, for once, because we used to be the champions in terms of taxes until then. And if we try to create this both means, I think it works. And this is what we are nowadays seeing just after the crisis, to see how important investment in France are.
And following on, Florence, from what Laurent has just said, looking at the different ways we have different care behaviours, different approaches across France and Europe itself, would you like to say a word about this, how the cultures change today?
Yes, I think the health culture is really changing, at least in Europe and in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think innovation is very important in order to foster this change also in France. And health insurers promoting innovation for their policyholders makes it possible to incorporate new treatment and to reimburse new treatments for our customers. So I think this is very important, and that's one of the key mandates of insurance regarding healthcare.
All right. And here in France, we speak a lot about, of course, the CIR, the Crédit Impôt Recherche. Could you develop the idea about the attractiveness of France with this mechanism in place?
Yes, the CIR is quite specific to France, even if other countries, of course, have some mechanism, taxes mechanism that can be compared. But it's true that CIR is very specific to France. First, in terms of amount, it is the first tax expense for the French state. It's more than 6.5 billion per year. So it's a huge amount. It's a huge amount, but it's necessary. Every year, and from tomorrow you will see with the discussion of the budget for the next year, every year you have some MPs that try to kill the CIR. It's normal.
It comes back every year.
It's part of the budget culture, and Christian Pierry knows it very well. But seriously, it's a key point of the attractiveness of France. I didn't mention it before because it's not new. It existed before 2017, but it's still very, very important. So I will always say there is no way that we will put an end to the CIR as far as we are, of course, in power.
So that's a scoop. Florence, would you like to follow on from that?
No, I think the CIR is a very important tool. And I think that all the startups which are here in the room or remotely following this event can benefit from it, and I can tell you that it is part of the attractiveness. And we recently, on behalf of my federation, we recently joined an initiative, a call for project, which is called Impact, and I think the biotechs which are working on mental health should all be answering to this call for project, the idea being to promote innovation in mental health. And I think it's a good example of what I said before. We put some money in this project, first because it's innovative, but also because with our insurer hat, then we noticed from the beginning of the crisis of the COVID crisis that this crisis had tremendous impact on the mental health of our French citizens. So I would say months before the decision of government regarding mental health, we already decided in March of this year to reimburse 4 psychological consultations, because we felt that there was a deep need in this country regarding mental health.
And there was a surge in this following the pandemic, throughout the pandemic and post-pandemic.
Sure.
Well, we're still in the pandemic, so
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Do we have any opportunity to take any questions from the public, from the audience today, this evening? I don't know if we're getting questions coming through. Would anybody present here this evening like to share this opportunity to ask a question to Florence Lutsman and to Laurent Saint-Martin? I think, we have a microphone.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any project to reinforce or to jeopardize, at the contrary, the status of the jeune entreprise innovante?
Actually, the answer is no. We don't want to change it, and if we do, it will be on a better way. I am working on maybe a solution that will make it longer, from 8 to 11 years. Why? Because especially for biotechs, medtechs, or very long-term investment, you need researchers, PhD, postdoc, during a long time. And sometimes it can be a good idea to make it longer, but about the terms of the Jeune Entreprise Innovante tool, I won't change it. Because you know, and Christian, you know it maybe more than anyone here, after 5 years of tax decrease, we need now stability. And you, CEOs, CFOs, you need to see clearly what is the fiscal environment for the coming years. This is what is important after a crisis. The level of taxes is one thing, but the very important thing is how far do you see? How far do you see? Is it stable? I think everyone here can agree with what I said before, that now France is about to be attractive. But what we need now is to make it stable and not to change it every years. And you know what is the worst for you is what I call the fiscal essuie-glace. You change it every year on exact opposite way from what it was the last year. So GEI will, of course, be maintained, and I'm working on make it more powerful.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Today, today about more than 90% of the biotech, health tech in France are dealing with the CIR, with the Crédit d'impôt recherche. And you were talking about stability, but what we see as entrepreneurs in the health tech is that the CIR is not stable year after year. This is changing. The rules are changing. So it's really important that we have this stability, even for the CIR, because for the biotech ecosystem, this is not a must. This is necessary. We are not a big pharma, and this is something important. So not having this stability is really disturbing the ecosystem.
I fully agree, but believe me, what you call changing, I would say that I resist a lot to make it not change it more than that. Trust me. But, sometimes we don't decide everything. For example, you remember what happened last year with the fact that the public research has to change from 2,000% to 100%. You remember that period? It was not because we wanted it. It was because there was a European issue that we needed to fix it. So during this PLF, we are going to bring some solution to change it again, but in a good way, to give it back as how it was before. But we try to make it stable as much as possible.
Thank you. Florence, would you like to pick up on this, the notion of stability, visibility, a bit of calm, or even tempted to say, for the insurance world, but also for your customers, for the patients?
Yes, stability and visibility are key for investors. I do agree. There is one issue on which I'm not looking for stability, but I'm looking for a decrease, and it's the capital charge which is put on the insurance companies when we invest in non-listed investments, typically in biotech. So there is a real challenge at the time with a revision of our solvency regime, which is called Solvency II. And with the help of the Ministry of Finance and of the French government, we've been fighting a lot during the work of the European Commission. The Commission has issued very recently, in fact, last week, a proposal. It's not yet definite, so it's difficult to say whether it will be positive or not, but I hope that it won't be negative, so at least that's a first point. But to support our economic recovery, and not only biotechs, but more generally investment in tech, for example, we definitely need to have a solvency regime which takes into account the long-term capacity of our investments. Today, we are just judged as if we were going to sell the investments every other day, and this is not at all the case. So I think there is a real challenge to develop new ways of charging capital for that type of investment.
Mm-hmm. And let's, because we're getting close to the end of this discussion, let me ask a question to both of you, Laurent Saint-Martin and Florence Lutsman. Why is it important for you to be here at Health Tech Innovation Days, placing France in Europe at the heart of health innovation and care?
Because we need innovation, and innovation from not only from France, but from Europe and also abroad. So I think it's very important to prove that we are attractive, that we have fiscal and tax regulations which are adapted over time, that we are keen on these investments. I just gave one example. I could have mentioned our investment program that we launched last year, which is called Relance Durable France, together with the Caisse des Dépôts. It's more than 2.4 billion euros invested in the recovery of our country, and 30% of that is invested in healthcare, and most of the money has already been invested in real biotech companies which will make the future of our health system.
Thank you. Laurent Saint-Martin.
Right. First of all, during the last decades, France and Europe has lost field all the time on the global competition. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that after the COVID crisis, we have a historic opportunity for once to be leader in some fields after the crisis. And what we said together with the public sector, the insurance sector, the investment sector, and you, is we all have one key, and if we put it together, for once it could work. For once we could invest long-term, invest a lot, take some risk, and trust me, for French institutions, the idea of taking some risk is not something always easy to convince, but I work on it. And if we do it together, I truly believe that it's possible to make France and Europe stronger than before the crisis. And you are one strong key. And from a personal perspective, it's always a pleasure to meet some CEOs, some people that create wealth in our country and create jobs. So all the time it's an opportunity for me to say thank you, because you are the first employer of France and you are, of course, the key of the success of our country.
So we are at a historic opportunity to lead and to go forward through innovative moves. Thank you, Florence Lutsman, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you.
And Laurent Saint-Martin for your busy time to have stayed with us. Thank you very much indeed.